I think they still finished first.
Because Boston's down how many games?
3.5 with 14 left. It's going to be tough sledding to keep the first, but it's going to be tough sledding for Boston to catch them with the schedule that is.
Detroit might not win more than 3 games without Cade. They all defense, no buckets.
There was a lot of criticism going around about Daniss Jenkins after he got paid. There was a slight drop-off in his performance. I mean, people can correlate that to pay. Sometimes, have ups and downs. It's like you going to work every day, or if you're working out, or you got extracurricular activities like the disc golf, whatever. Horseshoe, it's gonna be some days where you got it and some days where you don't got it. You can't seem to buy a vial. You can't seem to buy a basket. You can't seem to, chip, push that putt in. You know what I'm saying? So people need to understand athletes are humans too. Remember, we used to go up in school, used to wonder if we was younger, if the teachers used the bathroom or were they human like us? I feel like people kind of treat athletes in that same way. They can't have bad days. They can't make bad decisions. They kind of idolize them like God sometimes. They don't use the bathroom, and they, at the end of the day, they just like you and me. And you have good stretches, you have bad stretches. That's the balance of life. And Jenkins has shown, when the lights are brightest and when all the chips are down on the table and you need a royal flush, he's shown to be able to give you that royal flush. An undrafted free agent. That's one thing I'm liking about the Pistons. They're finding some good players like Miami. That's why Miami is always able to survive under Pat Riley. Pat Riley knows how to find talent. He, 50 years later, how long he been in there? Since once he was a player, till he was coaching the Lakers, the Knicks, he joined the Miami Heat organization. One thing about Pat Riley, he knows talent. And Trajan Langdon is showing the ability to know talent. See, Troy Weaver knew talent coming out the draft. He just didn't know how to support that talent with veteran talent or with the additional undrafted talent, that make any sense. And this was a great find by them. It's great hoopers everywhere. It's just opportunity. That's the difference. It's opportunity. And, Daniss Jenkins has stepped up. He's shown to be able to see why they play him over Sasser. He able to be a true point guard. He able to step up and make the shots. He's one of those guys that just need to get into a rhythm. And for him, sometimes it's hard to find a rhythm if you don't know if playing 15 minutes or 25 minutes. When ain't nobody really nipping at your heels and you can have the rock and you can get 20 to 30 minutes. You know what I mean? And it ain't, you ain't gonna get pulled, or you can get into a rhythm as long as you don't get in foul trouble. That gives you a comfortability and allows you to get into a rhythm. And now he's getting into a rhythm. And now, I think Cade Cunningham is rumored that, he's already doing basketball activities already. That's a rumor that's going out there. But the next thing, if you're able to get Cade back healthy, now you got somebody that can do what Schroeder did last year for them. But also in addition to that, now you got somebody that can buy you a break, which you thought was going to be Karis LeVert. And then I think, you start talking about, and I said this about this guy when they picked him up. I said Kevin Huerter is a really good defender. You know what I'm saying? And I heard somebody say, well, they letting Kevin Huerter lock him. Kevin Huerter can defend. I follow Kevin Huerter. Sacramento, Atlanta. Kevin Huerter can defend the basketball. Kevin Huerter can he just ain't a shooter. He used to be a shooter. His shot got broke for whatever reason. But Kevin Huerter can defend. He can finish at the rim. He might not finish over the rim, but he can finish at the rim. He's a good finisher. So when we start, having these conversations about Kevin Huerter, I mean, he's more than just a shooter. Now, if he can just shoot the rock, then that's a plus. That's really the cake and the icing. But everything else he do is important. And then you just, LeVert is a playmaker. He ain't really scoring at a high level. Body may be starting to break down a little bit. Maybe just having an off year, but you know, if you can get some of these dudes to contribute, I mean, Jalen Duren has had the best jump. He's had the best jump. Real talk. He's scoring and being consistent and being involved in all that type of stuff. That's what you want. So, you know, Jenkins and guys are showing the league that it's just more than Cade Cunningham. And to them, you know, we live in a roster in which, you know, we live in an age in which, you know, names. It's all about the names. You know, and the Pistons, they couldn't go be a 50-plus win team just off the back of Cade Cunningham. Just because of Jalen Duren. You know, in today's NBA, they feel like if you can't score, you're not affecting the game. And that's just so not true. The guys that take on the tough defensive assignments, the guys that sacrifice their bodies to get the rebounds, the hustle plays, they make the extra pass, they don't play hero ball. You know what I'm saying? They said Ron Hollins is second in defensive efficiency. Asar Thompson and him and Wu, at one point, they were all amongst, you know, close, you know, high in steals. You know, and you hear Nick Young say, oh, the Detroit Pistons good to defend. They can't get no buckets. And really, once you kind of look at Gilbert Arenas and guys like Nick Young, this is why they really wasn't what you thought they was going to be coming out of college, or why Gilbert didn't win a championship. Because all they care about is scoring. And we get it. The name of the game is to put the ball in the hole. But there's more to that, to basketball than just that. There's defense. There's spacing. There's slashing. There's defending. There's making the right play. You know, there's sacrificing sometimes your stats for the betterment of the team. And that's why, you know, Gilbert Arenas can never be your best player on a championship team. He don't understand outside of scoring the basketball. You know what I'm saying? This is why he'll never be in the same vein as a guy like Jason Kidd, John Stockton. And he's showing his son the same way. You ain't gonna win ball like that, bro. You ain't gonna play winning ball like that. Brian understood that. Jordan had to, Tex and Phil Jackson had to explain that to Jordan. You know? But so be it. But it's a team game. You know? Oh, you need bucket getter. Hey, first and foremost, you need a team. You need guys that's gonna sacrifice. And eventually the Pistons will need guys, or to find guys that can score, find guys that can, you know, that can develop into scorers and shooters. You know, that has to happen. But, you know, Daniss, Jenkins and company, they're showing that the Pistons are more than just Cade Cunningham. You know, more than just Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham. So, you know, everything happens for a reason, bro. You know, we may not understand the reason for things to happen, but everything happens for a reason. So, hey, thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and the subscribe button. It's the bell icon button. Hit all notifications, increase your chance of notifications. Hit that link tree in the description. It's the link that say find me everywhere, X, Facebook, Kick, Twitch, the whole nine. Peace.